Welcome everybody to the launch of the Australian ME/CFS and Long COVID AusME Registry, thanks to the foresight of the Mason Foundation and its impact over several years. We're now very proud and in a position to build on our work to date and propel much needed progress into the future. We're delighted that members of the Mason Foundation are with us today and honoured that Professor Peter Schofield AO, who serves as chair of the Mason Foundation's National Medical Advisory Panel, will officially launch the AusME Registry, which is part of our Mason Foundation Emerge Australia Biobank later in these proceedings. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet and pay my respects to elders past, present, emerging, and those in attendance today. So to start off with, just a bit of housekeeping. We are recording this webinar, so please let us know in the chat if there are any issues. Further to your requests, recording will be available on our website in the coming days. If you'd like to enable closed captions, click on Show Captions at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to engage with us in the chat, and our team are here with you, but note we're unable to answer further questions today given the many we already have. However, do feel free to connect with us through the usual channels, and of course our 1800 telehealth service is always available for you. At this stage in proceedings, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Emerge Australia's chair of our Medical and Scientific Advisory Committee, Emeritus Professor Paul Fisher. Paul is former head of microbiology, Department of Physiology, Anatomy and Microbiology at La Trobe University. Paul's research interests include a focus on ME/CFS, and as chair of Emerge Australia's Medical and Scientific Advisory Committee, Paul's leadership continues to help shape our research priorities. Paul's groundbreaking work is widely published, recognising ME/CFS as a complex and debilitating disease with a substantial social and economic impact on individuals and their community. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Anne. I have some slides to remind me of what I was going to say. So as soon as they're up, I'll fire away. Okay, so I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what the AusME Biobank is and why it matters, particularly why it matters for patients. So if we could move on to the next slide, I'll start off with that. So the Mason Foundation commissioned a report back in 2016, which was delivered in November 2016. And one of the recommendations from that report was that a stakeholders workshop be established on the feasibility and value of an Australian ME/CFS biobank. And I attended that workshop, which was held on April 6, 2017. As a result of that workshop and subsequent deliberations by the Mason Foundation, the biobank was established at the end of 2019 after a competitive grant process and a successful collaborative application between Emerge Australia and a consortium of researchers from 5 universities, which I led. So the biobank has 2 parts, just for those of you who are not familiar with what a biobank is. It has a participant registry, which is what's being, a new version of which is being launched today, and a sample bank, or sometimes we just shorten that to just call it a biobank, but the biobank is really the whole thing. So the registry was initially an Australian hub of a US organization called SolveME, and it set up this U+ME registry. And then when we started out, we set up an Australian hub of that. And so the previous version of our biobank was that hub. Today, we're launching our own Australian replacement for that, which is, amongst other things, an outcome of changes that happened as a result of the pandemic. We're really excited about it because we think it's going to be great for Australian patients and researchers in the area. The biobank itself, that part of it has blood samples collected from participants who have opted to participate in research projects. So why does it matter? Well, we all know that ME/CFS and long COVID patients, these now long COVID versions of ME/CFS, suffer from traditional lack of understanding of the biomedical basis of the illness. There's been a really long history to this illness, as many of you will be aware. And one of the problems is that there hasn't been enough understanding in the community and in some of the medical professions about this illness. And that has led to a long and exhausting and dispiriting journey to diagnosis. It's not enough GPs who know enough. And the case definition requires at least 6 months for ME/CFS and 3 months for long COVID. There are no magic bullets for treatment at the moment because we don't know enough about the disease. So we need research. We need it for several reasons. One is to discover so-called biomarkers for diagnostic tests. So these are things that you can measure in the blood or the saliva or whatever that will allow a rapid diagnosis, hopefully instead of the 6 months that we currently need for ME/CFS diagnosis. The second reason is that researchers needed to discover and validate treatment. Could we go back to the previous slide, please? Strategies, and to provide clear, irrefutable scientific validation of the biomedical basis of the illness. This is important for patients because it will shorten that journey and it will help GPs to understand the illness better, and it'll hurry up the diagnosis. And we may be able to actually improve treatments if we know as well. Researchers often struggle to find and access patients and controls, and a registry and biobank can help with that. So that's important. So if I could move on to the next slide now, please. So the biobank is going to provide a registry and a sample biobank for researchers, and it has this overarching structure. There is basically a medical and scientific advisory committee, which serves as the steering committee for the biobank, as well as providing scientific advice more broadly to Emerge Australia. And then a separate committee which operates separately, and that's the Biobank Access Committee. So what happens when researchers want to access the biobank is they initially put their proposal to the Medical and Scientific Advisory Committee. If that committee thinks it's okay, then the researcher can apply directly to the Biobank Access Committee, which makes the final decision about access to the samples. The main idea for these committees is to act as a gateway to ensure that biobank resources are being used scientifically in good quality research and not wasted, because we know that the patient participation and participants in the biobank have put a lot into just joining the biobank and being a part of it. We don't want to waste that precious resource. So that'll tell you a little bit about it. And you can see also on the slide how that's all sort of organised. We've got clinician representatives, scientist representatives, carer and patient representatives. Some of the other people on the committee also are patients themselves. So we think that we've got a pretty representative committee overall. So I'll leave it there, Michelle, and Anne rather, and we can pass it on to the next speaker.
Thank you, Paul. That was a really good comprehensive overview of the work and of the running of the biobank, which I'm sure will be very helpful to all of our listeners. So my next guest is Dr. Michelle Tavaletti, Emerge Australia's Research Manager. Michelle was awarded a PhD in 2007, and much of her career in medical research has been driven by the need for better diagnostic tools to study, diagnose and test treatments for diseases characterised by dementia. Her research was supported by local and international fellowships, grants and collaborative partners from around the world. With experience in managing academic, hospital and commercial projects, Michelle now aims to use her expertise to support and promote MECFS research in Australia. She is motivated by innovative research that can make a real impact and ultimately improve the lives of people dealing with MECFS. Michelle has been pivotal in driving the development of the AusME Registry, and we are very grateful for her dedication to our mission at Emerge Australia. So welcome, Michelle.
Great. Thank you so much, Anne. This webinar is a really wonderful opportunity for us to share what the EA team has been working on behind the scenes with our research partners. But I want to communicate that what I'm going to communicate today is not just attributable to our dedication to MECFS research efforts and long COVID efforts, but it's also a testament to the support of our community, our funders, and our research partners that now sees that investment in the MECFS research registry taken further to enhance our research endeavours. So just to follow on from what Paul was saying, and from the National Patient Organisation perspective, we're here to support those with MECFS and long COVID, and we are honoured and we're privileged to be in a position where we can place the focus on and centre the experience of those living with MECFS and long COVID smack bang in the middle of medical research efforts. We hope that this focus will lead to primary preventive measures, definitive diagnostics, effective treatments, and more importantly, personalised care for individuals with MECFS and long COVID. After all, there is no better way for us to understand a disease than by learning from those who experience it day by day. Now, before I continue on, I'd like to take this opportunity also to send our heartfelt thanks out to all of you who've already contributed to our research efforts, whether that be as a registry participant, a biobank donor, or both, or a member of one of our committees, our funders, and our research partners, because we know that without your contribution, the research just can't progress. So the question that we asked ourselves some time ago in Emerge was, how could we put the patient at the centre of medical research? And I suppose this ignited an ambitious endeavour that Paul's already alluded to. But in 2019, as he said, Emerge Australia, along with its research partners, was awarded funding to establish the first Australian MECFS registry, or U+Me Registry in Australia. And this opportunity was made possible by the financial support of the Mason Foundation and Equity Trustees, who with us and the researchers shared a vision of creating a patient registry with the aim that these entities could facilitate a world where those affected could meaningfully contribute to advancing research, thereby enhancing the quality and the consistency of the data available for medical researchers to better understand the illness and improve the research quality overall. Now, thanks to our registry participants and those that have donated blood, the registry now boasts over 1,000 participants, and the biosample component holds 100 donor biobank samples. Both the MECFS registry now supports more than 10 research groups across Australia. So all that research data and all those biosamples are now contributing to research studies that are ongoing. Whilst the pandemic has delayed the outcome of some of those research studies, we will in the future be showing you what your contribution has made towards furthering MECFS research. Now, over the last couple of years, our commitment to supporting MECFS research in Australia has extended beyond just providing data and samples. We have also been dedicated to forming partnerships and establishing connections with research institutions, their researchers, and clinicians nationwide. And our goal here has been to facilitate collaboration, communication, which we believe will lead to the improvement of the quality of the research undertaken for MECFS and long COVID. These partnerships have resulted not only in research groups around Australia being aware of each other and collaborating to the greater research effort for MECFS, but it's also led those research groups back to Emerge Australia, where they use our input for their project design, their assistance in recruiting participants for their research studies, and more recently, Emerge Australia staff are being invited to collaborate and contribute as a co-investigator on governmental research project grants, such as the current MRFF opportunity. Moreover, we were recently invited to present the AusME Registry at the Victorian Government's Long COVID Conference that was held in September this year. It was the first long COVID conference of its like in Australia. And for those of you that are interested in what we presented, the 100th edition of the Research Digest this month will display the poster that was presented there for you to look at. And now to the AusME Registry. So this expansion has led to the rebranding of the ME/CFS patient registry, and it's going to be known as the Australian ME/CFS and Long COVID, or for short, AusME Registry. And it will continue the efforts that we've already invested into the U+Me registry, where all the U+Me registry data and the biosamples will be carried over. Nothing is going to be lost. All is still securely stored and will continue to be used by approved researchers, making the AusME registry not just only an invaluable resource for those studying ME/CFS, but also long COVID. Please know we believe this expansion is essential due to the significant overlap that we're now seeing between ME/CFS and long COVID. So rather than reinventing the wheel, which there's no need to do, the knowledge we've gained from ME/CFS can be invaluable to long COVID research and vice versa. Hence, it makes perfect sense that we expand this registry to represent both patient groups that researchers and others can draw upon to enhance their research and also to serve as an evidence base for other endeavours. Today, we'll also be introducing officially the new platform for the AusME registry, and Jess will share this with you shortly. This updated platform has been designed based on the feedback that we've received from current participants of the U+Me registry. And it aims to make the new registry platform aims to make it easier for participants to navigate, but also to facilitate the comparison of the two conditions for Australian researchers. By expanding our scope, fostering a more comprehensive understanding of these overlapping diseases, we aim to use the registry to expedite the development of targeted interventions and personalised medicines for both conditions. And we are really excited about the opportunities that this expansion is going to bring. So in closing, I just want to again reiterate my deepest gratitude to each of you. It's been your dedication, your passion, and your contribution to the ME/CFS registry, which now forms the basis for what AusME registry will go on from here on in. Emerge Australia truly believes that the AusME registry has the power to transform the lives of those living with ME/CFS and long COVID. And it's going to be with your support and the support of the research communities, as well as our funders, that we will all collectively together contribute to make a difference for those affected by ME/CFS and long COVID. And finally, for those of you who would like to contribute to advancing ME/CFS and long COVID research, please look to our website or contact us directly. We're only too happy to answer anyone's queries, as we know that we just can't fuel medical research discoveries without your assistance too. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. What a wonderful overview, and how very blessed we are at Emerge Australia to have someone of your calibre heading up as our research manager. So thank you very much. So now it gives me great pleasure to introduce another one of our highly talented team, Dr. Jessica Cowhausen. Jessica is going to talk a little bit more about the AusME registry and biobank, and now I'll tell you a little bit about her. Jess secured her PhD in 2016 and spent the following 4 years working as an early career postdoctoral researcher in the Stem Cell and Neural Transplantation Laboratory at the Florey Institute in Melbourne. In late 2019, we were delighted that she chose to transition her career away from the lab bench and towards a more patient-centric role with us at Emerge Australia. Here she is leveraging her extensive understanding of basic laboratory research and experience in high-level project management with her ability to communicate complex biomedical information clearly to many different audiences, for example, patients, clinicians, researchers, and stakeholders. Jess has been instrumental in the formation and ongoing daily operations of the biobank and registry since its inception. We're so grateful that Jess's professionalism and her professional mission now is to empower people with ME/CFS and long COVID with the knowledge that their stories matter in research, and to act as the catalyst that drives high-impact discoveries that benefit our communities. Jess, it's a pleasure to have you talk now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very welcome introduction, Anne. It was amazing.
You're right, Jess. I can give you a start if you like. This is basically a website which shows the AusME Registry and will be a starting point for how you go about joining the AusME Registry. So you can see on the left there is a button that says join the AusME Registry. And I think which further, I suppose, forwards the information and the promise behind the registry, that we believe that every data point, there's a person, a story, and a chance for a better tomorrow. So your first opportunity to be an AusME Registry participant is simply by clicking that button. And Jess, as we're going on to the next slide, by doing so, you'll see a consent form. Jess, you want to take over?
Yeah, sorry. So the first step for anybody signing up to the AusME Registry is to give their consent. The participant information sheet that you can see clicking through now on this video contains all the information about the project, including the risks and the benefits of participating, what we do with your data, and who you can contact if you have any questions or complaints about the project. It's very important that you take the time to read the information statement so that you're fully informed. And at the very end, there are 2 comprehension questions just to make sure that you understand all the information that you've just read. After you've read the participant information sheet, everybody will then go along to the AusME consent form. Can't go to the next slide. Thank you. You will get to the consent form where you enter in your information, and if you give consent, you would sign the e-consent. It's important to know that even if you give consent now, you can always withdraw your consent at a later date at any time, no matter how much data you contribute. So it doesn't matter how much or how little. If you change your mind, then it's completely fine. As Michelle alluded to, the AusME Registry has expanded from the UME platform. We now allow people aged 12 years and over to sign up and participate. Anyone aged over 12 will need to have co-consent by a parent or a legal guardian. And for those who are parents or legal guardians of a person who has ME/CFS or long COVID, you can also sign your child up with their consent, of course, and provide data to the AusME Registry on their behalf. So the AusME Registry was developed and designed with the energy capacity of the ME/CFS and long COVID community in mind. We've based the development of it based on feedback from people who participated in the UME registry, as well as feedback that we received during our testing set. We have enabled several options to make participating a lot easier, including having progress bars at the top of the surveys, and visual checklists and estimated completion times along the way as you complete the surveys. In addition, we have also added in a save and continue later button at the top of the screen, where you can click on the button and it will send you a link to your survey so you can continue it later. At this time, due to limitations on the platform, you will need to save and continue in between the surveys in the survey sets during onboarding and a study visit. It's just a limitation of the platform, and we are hoping to get that fixed. Study visits are important because they allow researchers the ability to follow your health along a long period of time. We will request a study visit from you every 3 months, which is about 90 days, and they're open for 14 days each. Please know that if you're not feeling well or you don't have the capacity to complete a study visit at any given time, they can be skipped with no ramifications to your ongoing participation or the overall data. The next study visit will open in another 3 months' time. The UME to AusME transition, first and foremost, we want to clarify that all AusME registrants are required to read and sign the updated consent form and information statement. This is because as we've moved on to a new platform, we've had to change our protocols, and as such, we also have to get updated consent from all users, regardless of whether they previously participated in AusME. We want to make it clear that for UME participants signing up to the AusME platform, we want you to understand that it is a transition from the old platform to the new platform. We want to put you through the onboarding surveys, mainly because we need to get an updated snapshot of your health and demographic data. Because for some people who signed up at the UME platform back in 21, when we launched it, there would be significant differences, and we'll need an updated demographic snapshot, essentially. UME data is already stored and is continued to be being used for ME/CFS research. We will link your UME data to your AusME data, meaning that your story from that you've provided through the UME registry will remain connected to anything that you contribute to the AusME registry. Your privacy is our priority. We strip all identifiable information from the data that you contribute to the AusME registry, including your name, your date of birth, and your addresses, before we transfer any data to approved researchers. Furthermore, we have a very strict user access protocol for accessing any data that we have stored on our database, which is Australian-based and meets the Privacy Act and Health Record Act compliancy. Moving forward, we have future plans to develop and push out our participant web portal where participants can sign in and view their past survey data and be informed of upcoming study visits that they may have, and also development of a smartphone application. For more information or to sign up, you can now view our brand new website at www.ausmeregistry.org. And thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you, Jess. There was a lot to get through there, and it's pretty rattling when you're putting a presentation together and managing the technology at the same time. I had the same experience at the beginning of this webinar, so you've done really well. Thank you, Jess. So it now gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Professor Peter Schofield. None of this work would be possible without the commitment of the Mason Foundation. So as CEO of Emerge Australia and on behalf of our board, but in particular on behalf of Australia's people with ME/CFS and long COVID, our thanks to the Mason Foundation and to Equity trustees, particularly to Cecilia and Grant from Equity for their guidance and support, empowering the impactful giving for this groundbreaking work. We are delighted that members of the Mason Foundation are with us today and truly honoured that Professor Peter Schofield, AO, Chair of the Mason Foundation's National Medical Advisory Panel, is here to officially launch the Australian ME/CFS and Long COVID AusME Registry. So over to you, Peter.
And thank you so very much. To those that are listening, just a couple of words of background. So we call it the Mason Foundation, but to give it its true and proper title, it's the Judith Jane Mason and Harold Stannett Williams, that was her father, Memorial Foundation. The Mason Foundation's a little easier. It's a charitable trust and it supports medical scientific research on ME/CFS and also on Alzheimer's disease. I'm not going to talk about that portion at all today, but the funds in the trust are pretty equally split between those two conditions. The fund was established, or the foundation was established in 2003 from a donation from Ms. Mason, and she made further donations to boost the corpus of funds. And the goal is to achieve an enduring positive impact in the area of ME/CFS through funding medical research principally into the causes, prevention, and management of the condition. I've been on the advisory panel for, I think, nearly 15 years and chair for 10. And over that time, we were concerned and anxious that what we kept seeing were proposals that were small, with varied patient information and little collaboration. It didn't feel like the way to make progress. And so, in partnership with getting that critical consumer carer perspective, and as Paul mentioned, we commissioned an independent review, we sought consumer and researcher input, we held workshops to synthesize those inputs, and in the end asked for proposals to establish a registry and biobank, of which, congratulations, Paul, you were the lead. But critically, as Paul showed in his slides, there's a really strong consumer input through Emerge. There's a large partnership of research institutions working together, both to help collect and examine, test, research with samples, but also to make those samples available to other groups. And that's exactly what we wanted to see. And so we've been delighted to see the progress. And we think that this has been a really important step up for the whole field. Now, who knew that as Paul and his team were just starting to get into stride with the registry and biobank that COVID would emerge? And as is self-evident, I think, to everyone on this webinar, the overlap and similarities between so many of the signs, symptoms, and problems that happen in long COVID with ME/CFS made it really silly to go and duplicate all that hard work and have two separate initiatives. So firstly, congratulations on taking the initiative of using the hard work that you have done and for making this happen. So enough from me. It is really a great pleasure on behalf of the Mason Foundation to be able to do this on a webinar. No bottle of champagne on the side of a ship, not quite the same as being there in person, but it does let everybody around the country participate and people after the event also catch up. It is my great pleasure to officially launch the Australian ME/CFS and Long COVID Registry. And because that name is too long to work with, the AusME Registry. Congratulations. The Mason Foundation is delighted that you have taken this further initiative. Well done. And we do commend it to the community as a great way of being able to participate in ME/CFS and long COVID research and to get the collaboration and efficiency and partnership that we all desire, because without that, We won't make the discoveries. We won't get better treatments. We won't even look at cures. We need all those things. I hope this really helps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter, for those amazing words, the encouragement, and for your positive endorsement, and obviously for launching this registry for us. It means a lot to us. And one thing that we probably haven't mentioned is that our federal government this year announced that they'll be working towards an Australian Centre for Disease Control that initially will be focusing on data. And so the establishment of the AusME Registry will hopefully lead into being able to have our data used as part of that national repository. So that's just another addition that we can look forward to. So Peter, thank you. Thank you to everybody at the Mason Foundation. We are incredibly indebted. So the next part of this process is for me to move to a bit of a Q&A. And so I've got some questions here that I might just kick off with. And I'd really like to first maybe ask Paul if you could expand a little bit more about the issue of collaboration and data sharing and how that has been going with the existing biobank, and how, in what ways will the registry facilitate greater collaboration and data sharing and benefiting this work?
So one of the difficulties that researchers have, and which I have experienced myself, is trying to get into the field of ME/CFS research and long COVID research as well, because of the paucity of availability of access to patients. And you know, we always, as researchers, depend upon having a collaboration with a clinician who has access to patients. And for ME/CFS, there was very few people that you could actually collaborate with for that purpose. So it took me somewhere between 6 and 8 years before I found a pathway into ME/CFS research, having corresponded with the patient over that time. So finding new collaborators, I think, is finding a path into research. Firstly, is the first benefit of the biobank and the registry, because it can enable that process, because the biobank and registry have already done that work of finding participants, and researchers can therefore access the biobank. It also allows you to find new collaborators. And again, that was an issue for me at the beginning. In my case, I was able to find collaborators because a patient directly referred me to someone. But that also takes time. So finding collaborators is difficult and slow. Now with the registry and biobank, you can point researchers in the right direction and link people up when their research interests and techniques and skills overlap in productive ways. So that's been benefiting my work as well. And in fact, that early collaboration that I started on is still going. Those collaborations are still happening. So I also think that one of the benefits of those collaborations is that you can end up sampling information from the same patients and from the same blood samples. And as a consequence, direct comparisons are much simpler to do, and you can have much more trust in them, in the sense that you're working really with the same material from the beginning, instead of always having questions about, well, were they diagnosing the same way we were? Were their samples representative of the illness the same as ours? And for those who are in the ME/CFS field for a while, they'll know that there are multiple definitions of ME/CFS as well out there. And those definitions can lead also to different research results. Our registry is going to allow patients to be triaged to researchers in a way that takes account of that, and will tell researchers, this patient conforms to these criteria for ME/CFS or these criteria for ME/CFS, and so that can be tailored to the researcher's needs as well. So a sort of a rambling answer, but I hope that sort of gave you a hint of how it's being useful for researchers and collaborators to share data and samples and work together.
Thank you, Paul. I've got a bit of a comment and maybe a question for you, Peter. One of the challenges that we've faced, particularly since COVID, is that there is now a propensity of funding coming forward for long COVID research with very, very little connection to ME/CFS. And clearly the work of the Mason Foundation and your commitment and your delight that we've combined the two is one of the very, very bright shining lights. Do you want to maybe comment on, that issue and, the difficulty that is involved in being able to access further funds for ME/CFS research? Because it is a huge challenge for us at Emerge Australia and others in the field.
Indeed. I think it's often a challenge of both lesser known, lesser recognised conditions. The smaller the patient base doesn't make the condition any less severe, but individually the voice doesn't seem to be as loud. I think one of our great challenges in ME/CFS is still this issue of lack of a clear, simple diagnostic test. It would, make everybody, even if you didn't have a treatment, people would be so happy to be able to be sure that this was the condition that was affecting them and to then work through the various options that are available. So I think I've inherited a circumstance where the personal experience of one generous benefactor has enabled, through Equity Trustees, the Mason Foundation, to be able to continue to push that research. But the amount of government funding, for example, through the National Health Medical Research Council, has been very, very sparse. And so we sort of feel that one of the things we can try to do is to give a bit of a leg up to the field. We don't have a limitless budget, but if we can encourage collaboration, if we can get that consumer participation, all of those are the things that make a stronger, more competitive grant application. And then that starts to make a louder voice that gets heard more clearly. I think also that the growth and development of the consumer bodies like Emerge, or the equivalents in many other smaller, more rare diseases, all the ways that we've raised that profile and try to take an individual's circumstance into something that actually is a community problem.
Oh, thank you for that, Peter. That's just so reassuring. Thank you. So we have a question here from our community, and maybe I'll turn that to Michelle. I'm already a member of the AusME Registry. Do I need to do anything to join the new AusME Registry, or will my details and data be automatically transferred over?
The simple answer to that question, Anne, is yes. All AusME Registry participants will need to create an account on the AusME Registry and using the same email address that you used before. And that way, that allows us to acknowledge that you're a AusME Registry participant, because you can click a little box to let us know. And that action will then enable us to link all your data. So when researchers are looking at your particular data set, they can have both what's going to be put onto the AusME Registry as well as the data that's been brought across from the AusME Registry. So that all will be elicited by just activated, I should say, by just you clicking that toggle box. I was a past AusME Registry participant. Please be rest assured, from that you can probably ascertain that all your data from the AusME Registry is saved. It's there in storage conditions, secure storage conditions, and it will be used for future research studies as it is currently being used. So I think I might have answered all that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So Jess, one for you. Have you got your volume? You're off mute, hopefully.
I am.
The UNME registry process was arduous for those of us who are energy deficient. Will being an AusME participant be as energy draining?
This is a very important question, and it's one that, we deliberated as we were designing the platform. So we've made every effort to reduce the amount of questionnaires that participants will need to complete. The onboarding process or your first encounter with the AusME registry will be the most time and energy consuming. And while the subsequent study visits are going to be less involved than what you would expect from the UME registry. We are very well aware of the limited energy that participants have, and we encourage those of you, when you reach the end of a survey section, you can click save and continue later. And you just click the link in the email that it will send you, and you can go back to it when you have the time and the capacity to do so. And then also, as we mentioned earlier, we have 3 monthly study visits, which are survey sets to gain longitudinal data. And you'll be notified via email that one would be open. There is no obligation to complete those. And we want you to work within your energy envelope with how much or how little that you contribute to the AusME registry.
Great. Thank you so much. Another question. I'm eager to volunteer to be a research study participant. How do I register my interest?
Is that one for me, Anne, or Michelle?
I think for you, Jess. Yes, sorry.
Well, basically, the easiest way to register your interest in participating in other research studies is to sign up to the AusME registry. By signing up, you are immediately on our list of people that we could potentially contact when a study gets approved by Emerge Australia's Medical and Scientific Advisory Committee. And once one is approved, I go through the registry data and find people that meet the criteria and the locality of a study that was just approved. And you will either receive an invitation to participate in a particular project, or you'll be notified that they're recruiting and that you may be eligible for that project. In addition, you'll also, by signing up to the AusME registry, you can express your interest to donate a biobank sample or a blood sample to the biobank. Participating in the registry doesn't mean you have to donate a blood sample or have to participate in any other research studies. It just opens up the doors to be able to connect you with further research if you choose to participate.
So I'm just going to, you're on a roll, Jess. So I'm going to keep going here, and I'm going to ask you this question. What is involved in being a blood donor, and how how time expensive is it?
Well, donating a blood sample does take a little bit more time and energy compared to the registry. We're collecting up to 100 mils of blood, so it's more than a normal pathology test, but significantly less than what you would donate to lifeblood, for example, as a full blood donation. Basically, we are currently collecting in Victoria and New South Wales. Participants sent personalised invitations from me to them based on the data that you provide in the AusME registry, inviting you to sign up and donate a blood sample. And if you do, I get in contact with you and you give consent to donate a sample. If you are eligible based on the criteria that we are looking for in a donor, we then will book you in for a donation at a Dorevitch site close to your home or a DHM site close to your home in New South Wales. And you go in and you give your blood donation. And the following day, you complete a small collection day survey to get a little bit more information about your health and any symptoms you may experience, to add to the data set that your blood sample would provide. Yeah, does that answer your question, Anne? Sorry.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So another question for Peter. As an eminent researcher in this and related fields, what are your thoughts or hopes that you might be able to share with our audience, of course, many of whom have ME/CFS and are patients and carers? Do you see there's reason for hope, given that it has been such a long time that there has been little progress?
I'm a medical researcher, Anne. We live and work and trade in hope, because that's why we do this work. There's a problem, it needs a solution. It needs a diagnosis, it needs a management plan, it needs a treatment plan. And for whatever field we're doing that particular piece of work in, that really is the motivator. Yes, the scientist in us wants to understand the detailed mechanics. Probably most of the people on the call are a bit less thrilled about that. They just want to know, what is it? How do I treat it? But that's the end goal of the research enterprise. And so there is, the best possible outcome for any medical researcher is to make themselves redundant, because the condition they're working on is cured. Vaccination is a good example of some diseases that we've been able to cure. Good treatments and management of other conditions make them almost a non-problem today. But the world is full of so many tricky, big, challenging problems: dementia, mental illness, chronic fatigue syndrome, ME. They all affect different ones of us in the population. So, again, back at what can the Mason Foundation do with its relatively small amount of funds? Build up capacity. Make this an interesting and exciting area for researchers to be able to fulfill that objective. And part of that, Paul just elaborated on this in your question to him, it was difficult to get that interaction with the patients, because to be a researcher, you need those samples. It was difficult to actually get that patient perspective. Congrats to Emerge for being able to facilitate and help all those things. But these are, my father-in-law would ask questions like, what are you working on? So I'm still working on dementia. It's not cured yet. To which he'd sort of go, oh, okay, fair enough, good point. So in the same way, we need to encourage people to work on these problems, and to bring as many people together, and just get that collective energy,
which so many of our people are lacking. But
exactly, but they can take the collective energy from us. If we can pass some of that across,
absolutely,
that would be a good thing. If they don't have the energy today or tomorrow or next week, they should know that there are people that do and want to. So I hope that also encourages people who, at many points in their life are feeling very flat and very lethargic. I hope that does actually encourage them and give them a bit of a lift.
Oh, Peter, thank you so much. And it's so fitting that the final words to this very important launch come from you as the chair of the Mason Foundation Medical and Scientific Advisory Panel. Once again, thank you to you. Thank you to the Mason Foundation. Thank you to everyone who presented today. And thank you for launching the AusME Registry. We weren't able to get to all of your questions, but please feel free to contact us at Emerge Australia. And I'd like to highlight the fact that if you wish to participate in the AusME Registry and our biobank, feel free to sign up at Emerge Australia's website, which is www.emerge.org.au. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. You can see this recording or hear this recording when it is put up on our website. Thank you to those from the Mason Foundation and everyone here today on launching this critical registry, the AusME Registry. Thank you and goodbye.